Welcome to Faithlight, where we share God's love and truth. Let His light inspire your heart and guide your journey of faith. Don't forget to subscribe and join us as we walk in His light together. Today, we will dive into a story titled Taoism, the Way of Harmony, the ancient wisdom of flow and balance. Here is the detailed content. Chapter 1. The Birth of the Way. In the twilight of ancient China, when the rivers flowed like veins across the land and the mountains stood as silent guardians of time, there arose a yearning among men, a question whispered by the wind itself. What is the way? The world was restless. Empires rose and fell like tides. Kings ruled with ambition. Philosophers debated about virtue, and scholars filled scrolls with laws and doctrines. Yet, amid all this noise, something deeper stirred, a silence beneath the sound, a rhythm beneath the chaos. It was said that in the small state of Ku, under the waning light of the Zhou dynasty, a child was born beneath the shade of an ancient plum tree. His name would echo through the ages, Laozi, the old master. His eyes, witnesses of countless lifetimes, seemed to hold the reflection of mountains and stars. He did not cry upon birth. Instead, the story goes, he smiled, as if he already knew the truth of all things. Laozi grew in quiet observation. He watched how the rivers flowed effortlessly, how the wind bent the grass without breaking it, how the sky gave without asking, and how life itself seemed to move in a perfect, unspoken rhythm. He learned from no teacher, for his teacher was the Tao, the way that could not be seen or named, yet was the source of all existence. The people of Zhou spoke of Confucius, a man of order and ritual who sought to bring harmony through law and propriety. Yet Laozi looked at the same world and saw something different, a truth that could not be confined by rules or measured by ceremony. When the great Tao is lost, he would later say, there appears benevolence and righteousness. For him, virtue that had to be forced was already corrupted. The Tao did not command, it did not demand, it simply was. To live according to it was not to obey, but to flow. As years passed, Laozi served as the keeper of the archives for the Zhou court. He read the histories of kings, the decrees of emperors, and the endless cycles of power and decay. The more he read, the more he understood that all civilizations were built upon illusion, the illusion of control. He saw that when rulers tried to grasp the world, they only tightened their own chains. When they sought to impose virtue, they invited hypocrisy. And when they sought to conquer nature, they lost themselves. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the horizon, Laozi walked through the gardens of the imperial library. The air was heavy with the scent of bamboo and rain. He gazed at the falling leaves and whispered, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. In that moment, a truth unfolded. The Tao was not something to be found, but something to be remembered. It was the pulse of all things, the rhythm that gave life and reclaimed it, the invisible current that moved heaven and earth in silent perfection. But the world was not yet ready to understand. As chaos spread through the land, wars erupted between rival lords, and the Zhou dynasty began to fade into legend. Seeing the decline, Laozi decided to leave. He mounted his buffalo and journeyed westward, toward the unknown mountains, seeking solitude, not fame. When he reached the border at the western gate, the keeper, a man named Yin Shi, recognized him. Master, he said, before you go, will you not leave behind your wisdom for the world? Lao Tzu paused. Beneath the pale moon, he dismounted, took out a bamboo brush, and began to write. By morning, he had completed a small book, about 5,000 characters, that would outlive empires. Its name, Taoism, the Book of the Way and Virtue. He handed the scroll to Yin Shi, smiled faintly, and disappeared into the mist. Some said he became an immortal. Others believed he turned into the wind itself. But his words remained, a map for those who sought to walk without walking, to see without looking, to live without striving. And so began the story of Taoism, not a religion born from worship, but a return to harmony, not a path of belief, but a way of being. It whispered to those weary of the noise of men, "Be still, let the world move through you. The way is not out there, it has always been within." Chapter 2. The flow of heaven and earth. The mountains were still. The rivers moved like threads of silver beneath the rising sun. All around the world breathed, slow, eternal, and unbroken. This was the living face of the Tao, though no man could point to it or give it a name. In Taoist thought, heaven and earth were not opposites, but reflections. Yin and yang, darkness and light, stillness and motion were not enemies, but lovers in an endless embrace. From their union, all things arose, mountain and valley, sky and sea, male and female, life and death. To understand the Tao, one did not study it, one watched. Lao Tzu once wrote, "Man follows the earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows the Tao, the Tao follows what is natural." To follow what is natural, Ziran was to flow with the current of existence, not against it. But humanity, in its hunger for control, had forgotten how to float. It struggled, it fought, it desired, it built walls against the wind, drew lines upon the soil, and gave names to things that were once infinite. In naming the world, it divided it. And yet, beneath all this, beneath the noise of kingdoms, beneath the arrogance of men, the Tao continued to move, silent and effortless. There was a story told among the old hermits of the mountains, that in the time before heaven and earth were formed, there was only the Tao, a formless void, dark yet full of potential. From it arose the One gave birth to two, yin and yang. The two gave birth to three, heaven, earth, and humanity. And the three gave birth to the 10,000 things, all beings and phenomena that fill the cosmos. Each thing carried the Tao within, like the flame within a lamp. It was not something to be reached, it was something to remember. To the Taoist sage, a single blade of grass held the same truth as a mountain. The bending of bamboo in the wind revealed more wisdom than 1,000 books. The soft overcomes the hard, said Lao Tzu. Water wears away stone, not by force, but by persistence. For the Tao was not strength, but balance, not dominance, but harmony. It did not strive, yet nothing remained undone. In those days, a wanderer named Zhuangzi, later known as Zhuangzi, roamed the lands of Zhuangzi and Wei. He carried no possessions, only laughter and a heart as free as the wind. He said, "Once I dreamed I was a butterfly, fluttering about, enjoying itself. I did not know I was Zhuangzi. Then I awoke, and there I was. But now I do not know. Was I Zhuangzi, who dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming that I am Zhuangzi?" People called him a fool, but he smiled, for he understood the great paradox, that to cling to reality is to lose it, and to let go is to awaken. He wandered through the forests, listening to the song of cicadas and the laughter of rivers. To him, the Tao was alive, not in temples or scriptures, but in the breath of every living thing. The trees whispered it, the wind carried it, the stars reflected it. One evening, Zhuangzi sat by the river, watching the water flow endlessly into the horizon. A student beside him asked, "Master, how do you know that fish are happy?" Zhuangzi chuckled, "You are not me. How do you know I do not know that fish are happy?" The student frowned, confused. "Then, Master, how do you know?" He smiled, eyes gleaming with the same mystery as the river itself. "I know it from being here beside the river." In that simple exchange lay the essence of the Tao, that knowledge does not come from analysis, but from presence. To be one with the world is to understand it without trying. Taoism was not a rejection of life. It was a dance with it. The sage did not withdraw from the world because he despised it, but because he saw through its illusions. He did not renounce. He returned to simplicity, to flow, to the eternal breath of the Tao. The 5 elements, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, were not substances to be worshipped, but processes in motion, phases of the Tao's eternal rhythm. Wood fed fire. Fire gave birth to earth through ash. Earth bore metal. Metal enriched water. Water nourished wood again. The cycle never ended. It only transformed. In the heart of this cosmic dance, there was no victory, no defeat, only balance. Taoism taught that the sage's greatest power was Wu Wei, non-action, or rather, action without force. Like the river that carves the canyon without ever resisting its path, the wise one moves with the world, not against it. The kings of old, when they still remembered the Tao, ruled not through command, but through example. The best rulers, said Laozi, are those whose presence is barely known. When their work is done, the people say, "We did it ourselves." But that age was fading. The more humanity tried to master the Tao, the more it slipped through their fingers. Still, somewhere beyond the noise of palaces and the clash of armies, the Tao continued to flow in the mountains, in the rivers, in the silence of those who remembered. It was said that those who truly understood it no longer sought to become gods, heroes, or saints. They became like water, humble, adaptable, clear, and in their stillness, they found the universe moving through them. The highest good is like water. Laozi once wrote, "It benefits all things and does not compete. It dwells in the low places that all disdains. Therefore, it is close to the Tao." Chapter 3. The Immortals and the Breath of Life. Night had fallen over the mountains of Zhongnan. Mist curled between the pines like drifting spirits, and the moon hung low above the peaks, silent, ancient, eternal. Deep within the forest, a single lantern flickered beside a thatched hut. Inside, an old man sat cross-legged, his eyes closed, his breath so faint that even the flame beside him seemed afraid to move. They called him an immortal, though he never claimed the title. His name had long been forgotten, as most names eventually are. To those who stumbled upon him, he would only say, "I follow the breath of heaven," for in the heart of Taoism, breath qi was life itself. It was the invisible thread that wove the cosmos together, flowing through stars, rivers, and men alike. To breathe in harmony with the Tao was to live beyond death. To lose the way was to become dust. In the earliest days, Taoist masters did not seek immortality as mortals now understand it. They sought balance, the perfect union of body, spirit, and nature. They believed that decay came not from time, but from disharmony. When man's rhythm fell out of step with heaven's, the old texts spoke of a divine art called Yangsheng, nourishing life. It was not a ritual, but a way of being, eating in moderation, sleeping in rhythm with the sun, moving as water moves, speaking as little as the wind. The sage did not defy death, he simply flowed beyond it. Over centuries, these quiet practices evolved into disciplines of body and spirit. Breathing exercises became qigong. Internal energy became niden, the inner alchemy. Taoist hermits studied how to refine their essence, jing, transform it into energy qi, and elevate that into spirit shen. When spirit returned to emptiness, they said, one became one with the Tao, immortal not in flesh, but in being. Yet, legends soon began to grow, as legends always do. In the valleys of China, peasants told tales of those who mastered the Tao and could ride the clouds, speak with the wind, and dissolve into light at will. These beings were called the Eight Immortals, not gods, but humans who had transcended the bounds of mortality. There was Lu Dongbin, the wandering scholar, who carried a sword that could cut through illusion. He Shanggu, the maiden who nourished life with the petals of a lotus. Zheng Golo, who rode a white donkey backward, for he cared not where the world went. And Li Tiguai, the beggar with an iron crutch, who carried medicine for both body and soul. Each immortal's story was a mirror of the Tao itself, paradoxical, humble, and timeless. But behind these myths lay a deeper truth. The pursuit of immortality was never about escaping death. It was about dissolving the illusion of separation, to see that life and death were not two doors, but the same open space. One story tells of a hermit who once asked his master, "How may I live forever?" The master smiled and said, "Learn to die before you die." The student pondered for years before understanding. To die before dying was to let go of the self, to allow the ego, the striving, the fear to fade. When nothing was left to die, what remained was eternal. Thus, the immortals were not beings of fleshless eternity, but symbols of inner freedom. They walked among mountains and clouds because they were as light as them. Taoism, in this form, became both a philosophy and a spiritual technology. Alchemists sought to replicate cosmic processes within their own bodies, heating, refining, and transforming essence into purity. Gold was revered not for its wealth, but for its incorruptibility. To turn lead into gold was not the goal, it was a metaphor for turning ignorance into wisdom. In secret caves, adepts drew diagrams of the human body as a microcosm of the universe, with mountains for bones, rivers for veins, and stars for the eyes. The flow of qi mirrored the flow of heaven's breath. Every inhale was the expansion of the cosmos. Every exhale, its return. In those days, people said that when the Tao truly filled a person, even nature obeyed them. Rain would fall where they walked, blossoms would open in their steps, and animals would gather without fear. But true sages never showed their power. They lived quietly among peasants, healing the sick, guiding the lost, and disappearing when praised. Zhuangzi once said, "Perfect men have no self. Spiritual men have no achievement. The holy man leaves no name." And so, the true immortals became invisible. They did not build temples. They became the temple. They did not chase eternity. They became eternity itself. The hermit in the hut opened his eyes. Dawn had come. The mist rose like incense, and the world was reborn in the soft light of morning. He stood, stretched his arms, and breathed deeply, his chest rising like the tide. Each breath was heaven entering earth, the universe becoming whole again. He smiled, for he knew there was no need to seek the Tao. It is already here, he whispered. It breathes when I breathe. Thus the Taoists sought not to conquer time, but to move beyond it, one breath at a time. Chapter 4: The Balance of Power and Emptiness. In the ancient court of Zhou, where jade floors gleamed under lantern light, a ruler once asked his advisor, "Master, how may I hold power without losing peace?" The advisor, an old man with a gaze as still as a lake, replied, "By holding nothing." Thus began one of the greatest paradoxes in the history of civilization. To rule, one must not rule. To win, one must not fight. This was the way of Taoism in the world of men, the path of Wu Wei, non-action, which did not mean idleness, but acting without forcing. 1. The Empire and the Void. As the teachings of Laozi spread beyond hermit caves and bamboo scrolls, they began to reach the ears of kings. The rulers of ancient China, facing rebellion and chaos, found strange comfort in the idea that the strongest rule was often the softest one. The best rulers are those whose existence is barely known by the people, said Daodejing. A true leader, Laozi taught, was like water, yielding, humble, yet unstoppable. It flows around obstacles, nourishes all things, and never seeks to dominate, and yet it shapes mountains and carves valleys. The idea shocked the warlords of the age. Could gentleness truly conquer force? Could emptiness be stronger than presence? And yet, over centuries, the wisdom of Wu Wei proved itself in the art of governing, war, and survival. 2. The general who fought without fighting. There was once a strategist named Sun Tzu, though not a pure Taoist. His philosophy bore the breath of the Tao in the art of war. He wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." His words echoed Laozi's belief that the soft overcomes the hard, that true victory lies not in destruction, but in understanding. To Sun Tzu, the general who truly grasped the way could defeat armies without shedding blood, for he knew when to advance, when to yield, and when to wait. He saw the enemy not as an opponent to crush, but as a reflection of imbalance. A Taoist general did not fight against nature, he flowed with it. He read the landscape like a sacred text. Rivers, valleys, and winds were not obstacles, but allies. He won before the battle began, because his mind was clear as water. And so, Taoism became the unseen route beneath Chinese strategy, from palace intrigue to peasant revolts, from the brush of calligraphy to the blade of command. 3. The emperor who ruled by emptiness. Centuries later, Emperor Wen of Han was said to have ruled according to the Tao. He lowered taxes, ended wars, and abolished harsh punishments. When asked why he did so little, he replied, "The more I let go, the more the people flourish." Under his reign, the land prospered. Scholars later called it the Golden Age of Wu Wei. This was the paradox that defined Taoist governance: the ruler as the empty center, the axis around which the realm revolved. Like the hub of a wheel, his strength lay in stillness. The Tao was not passive. It was the invisible balance that allowed all things to move in harmony. A king who grasped this did not command, he guided. He did not seek to be wise, yet wisdom followed him. He did not impose order, yet order emerged. 4. The art of emptiness. Taoist masters often taught through paradox, because truth could not be grasped directly, it had to be felt. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone to know the world. Do not leave your room. The highest virtue is not virtuous. That is why it has virtue. Such sayings puzzled scholars for centuries, but warriors, poets, and mystics understood them instinctively. For the Tao was like the void inside a flute. It is the emptiness that makes music possible. A blade cuts because of the space along its edge. A cup holds wine because of the emptiness within. A mind rules because it is clear and hollow enough to reflect the world as it is. In this way, Taoism transformed not only kings, but artists, monks, and wanderers. The calligrapher sought the space between strokes. The martial artist sought the stillness between motions. The sage sought the silence between thoughts. In those intervals, where doing vanished, the Tao appeared. 5. The balance restored. Near the close of the Han Dynasty, chaos once again swept the land. Warlords burned temples, scholars fled into mountains, and the people suffered. Yet, amid the turmoil, small enclaves of Taoist hermits remained untouched. In mountain valleys, they cultivated peace like farmers cultivate rice, quietly, patiently, knowing that harmony cannot be forced, only allowed. From their teachings, new movements emerged. Tianshi Tao, the celestial masters; Shangqing, the highest clarity; Lingbao, the numinous treasure. Each carried the same seed, that balance, once lost, can be found again, not through conquest, but through return. Fu. All things return to the source. Returning to the source is serenity. By the end of the 3rd century, Taoism had grown beyond philosophy. It became a living religion, complete with temples, rituals, and sacred texts. Yet the heart of it remained unchanged. The way cannot be owned, only walked. As dawn broke over the eastern mountains, the mist parted like a slow exhale. Each stroke of his broom was gentle, rhythmic, effortless. He was cleaning not just the ground, but his mind. A traveler approached and asked, "What is the secret of ruling the world?" The monk smiled. "Sweep," he said, "and when you are done, keep sweeping. Power and peace are not enemies. They are the inhale and exhale of the same breath." Chapter 5. The Way of Nature. Mountains, rivers, and the flow of life. There is a place beyond words, where the mountains breathe, and rivers speak in silence. It is there that the Tao lives. 1. The spirit of the world. To the ancient Taoists, nature was not a resource, it was the teacher. Every mountain was a sage, every stream a whisper of wisdom. To study the Tao was not to read scrolls, but to watch clouds drift and bamboo bend. In the Daodejing, Laozi wrote, "Man follows the earth follows heaven, heaven follows the Tao, and the Tao follows what is natural." This chain of harmony bound all things together. The heavens, the earth, and humanity, not separate realms, but mirrors reflecting one another. To go against nature was to lose the way. To flow with it was to awaken. Thus, Taoist monks withdrew from cities, leaving behind the noise of ambition to live among rivers and peaks. They sought not solitude, but reunion, to become part of the great breathing of the world. 2. The hermit in the mountains. In the bamboo forests of Mount Lu, there lived an old hermit named Zhuangzi, though most knew him simply as Zhuangzi. He once dreamed he was a butterfly, fluttering freely without care. When he awoke, he wondered, was I Zhuangzi dreaming I was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I am Zhuangzi? That simple question became one of the most profound teachings in Chinese thought, blurring the boundary between dream and waking, between man and nature. To Zhuangzi, reality was fluid, like the flow of a river. He laughed at philosophers who argued endlessly about truth, saying, "The Tao is not in words. When the fish is caught, forget the net." He wandered from village to mountain, living by the rhythm of the wind. When asked what he gained from his retreat, he answered, "I have lost everything that was false." 3. The language of water. If Laozi was the voice of the Tao, and Zhuangzi its laughter, then water was its truest face. For in every ripple and reflection, Taoists saw the secret of existence. Water yields to everything, yet conquers all. It takes the lowest place, yet nourishes the highest peaks. It adapts to every shape, yet remains itself. Nothing in the world is softer than water, Laozi wrote. Yet nothing is stronger in overcoming the hard. To live like water was to live in flow, effortlessly, without resistance. When Taoist painters held their brushes, they did not paint water, they became water. The ink flowed like a current guided by stillness, not control. In that flow, they glimpsed eternity. So too did Taoist musicians. Their flutes imitated the sound of the wind. Their zithers echoed the murmuring of rivers. They did not play for nature, they played with it, for the alchemy of the elements. As Taoism deepened, it gave rise to internal alchemy, a sacred science that mirrored the transformations of nature within the human body. The breath became the wind, the blood became the river, the bones were mountains, the spirit the sky. To cultivate the Tao was to harmonize the elements within, to make one S-body a miniature universe. This practice, known as Niden, sought immortality not through escaping death, but through alignment with the eternal flow of nature. In meditation, adepts visualized golden rivers flowing through their meridians, stars shining within their hearts. They believed that when the inner and outer worlds resonated as one, the boundary between mortal and divine would vanish. It was said that the highest masters could dissolve into mist, becoming one with wind and cloud. Whether myth or truth, the meaning was clear. To merge with the Tao was to return to the infinite. 5. The world as mirror. For the Taoist, every sight was a teaching. A tree bending under snow spoke of resilience. A bird gliding on wind taught the art of effortlessness. A mountain reflected in still water revealed the illusion of separation. Even decay was beautiful, for rot fed life, and endings were beginnings in disguise. The 10,000 things rise and fall, yet the Tao remains. This vision shaped Chinese culture for millennia. Artists painted not to capture beauty, but to express the unseen harmony within it. Poets wrote verses that dissolved the line between self and world. When the poet Wu Wei gazed at a mountain stream, he wrote, "Empty mountains, no one to be seen, yet the sound of voices is heard." That paradox was the essence of Taoism, the emptiness that is full, the silence that sings. 6. Returning to the source. As centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but the Tao remained like a quiet current beneath history. While wars ravaged cities, monks still meditated in caves, breathing with the rhythm of the forest. They watched the seasons turn, not with sorrow, but with trust, for in every autumn's decay lay the seed of spring. To them, eternity was not somewhere beyond the stars, but in the pattern of falling leaves, the birth of dew, the song of cicadas at dusk. When a young disciple once asked his master, "Where can I find the Tao?" the old sage pointed to the sky, then to the river, then to the boy's own heartbeat. "Everywhere," he said softly. "You are swimming in it." only stop thrashing. And so the Taoists lived, not as conquerors of the earth, but as children of it. They knew that life and death were not enemies, but movements of the same breath. To die was to flow back into the great river, to return home. He who follows the way of heaven, said Laozi, flows with the seasons, acts without striving, and returns without fear. At sunset, the hermit watches mist curl over the peaks. The wind moves through pine branches like invisible hands playing an ancient melody. He smiles, bows to the mountain, and whispers, "We are not apart." To understand the Tao is not to seek it, but to stop resisting what already is. Chapter 6: The Immortal Breath, Taoist Alchemy, and the Search for Eternal Life. The night sky above the mountains was alive with stars, billions of silent flames pulsing like the breath of heaven itself. In a secluded valley, beneath a canopy of ancient pines, a single lantern flickered. Inside a stone hut, an old Taoist sage sat cross-legged before a bronze cauldron. He inhaled slowly, the sound almost imperceptible, and exhaled even slower, his breath a mist rising into the starlit air. Each breath was a prayer, each heartbeat a step closer to eternity. 1. The dream of immortality. From the earliest dynasties, humankind has feared death, but to the Taoists, death was only imbalance. If life is the flow of qi, the vital breath, then death is simply when that flow becomes blocked, scattered, or exhausted. The goal was not to defy nature, but to perfect harmony with it, to make one's breath so pure, one's energy so aligned, that the body itself becomes one with the Tao. They called it Chengsheng Buksu, Changsheng Busu, long life, no decay. But the immortality they sought was not the cold, endless continuation of existence. It was the eternal flowering of harmony, the human spirit merging with the pulse of heaven and earth. 2. The outer alchemists, masters of metal and fire. In the beginning, the search was physical. Taoist adepts studied the stars, the minerals, and the cycles of the moon. They discovered that everything, gold, mercury, jade, even cinnabar, carried a fragment of heaven's power. They built secret furnaces deep in the mountains and sought to refine these substances into the elixir of life. Dan Dan, fire, in their eyes, was the energy of transformation, the same sacred flame that turns night into dawn. By heating and purifying metals, they sought to mirror the refining of the soul. Legends tell of Wei Boyang, the father of alchemy, who said, "He who knows the way of the elixir knows the way of heaven." He mixed mercury and lead, symbolizing yin and yang, and declared that when they unite perfectly, life would transcend death. But alchemy was dangerous. Many perished in their experiments, consumed by their own ambition. And so, slowly, the masters turned inward. 3. The inner alchemy, refining the spirit. When the sages saw that the true elixir could not be found in metal or fire, they began to search within. They realized that the body itself was the cauldron, the breath, the fire, and the spirit, the substance, to be refined. Thus was born Naden, the inner alchemy. The alchemist's furnace was his own heart. He sat in meditation, visualizing energy flowing through channels called meridians. Through deep breathing, stillness, and mental clarity, he gathered the scattered energies of the body, Jing essence, Qi breath, and Shen spirit, and united them into one luminous presence. When the three became one, the sages said, a golden light would bloom in the center of the mind, the immortal embryo. It was not the creation of a new body, but the birth of a body of light, capable of existing beyond death. When the mind is pure, said one master, the breath becomes eternal. 4. The path of transformation. To walk this path required discipline beyond measure. For years, a Taoist would rise before dawn, breathing in rhythm with the rustling of trees, aligning his pulse with the heartbeat of the earth. He would eat lightly, speak little, and live in simplicity. Every movement, every breath, every thought became part of a sacred rhythm, the dance of yin and yang. The key was balance, never forcing, never resisting. Just as water wears down stone, not through strength, but through patience, so too did the Taoist refine his spirit through gentle persistence. The Taoist texts called this returning to the root. For the Tao was not something to be attained. It was what one already was, before desire, before fear. To return was to remember, and to remember was to live forever. 5. The immortal beings. Over centuries, stories emerged of those who had succeeded. They were called Xian, sand, immortals, radiant beings who transcended the mortal realm. Some lived in distant mountains, riding cranes across clouds. Some walked through forests unseen, appearing only to those of pure heart. Others became stars in the night sky, watching silently over the world. But in every story, they shared the same qualities: serenity, compassion, and the effortless power of one who had become part of the Tao. They were said to laugh easily, to drink dew, and to speak little. To them, life and death were like the shifting of seasons, neither to be feared nor resisted. The true immortal, one text said, does not live forever. He dies and is reborn every breath. 6. The emperor and the alchemist. Even emperors were not immune to the dream of immortality. The great Qin Shi Huang, who united China, sought the elixir of life from every corner of his empire. He sent ships across the seas to find the isles of the immortals, and never returned. Ironically, the very mercury elixirs he consumed in pursuit of eternal life hastened his death. It was a cruel reminder that the Tao cannot be forced. Immortality, the Taoists taught, is not granted by the heavens or forged by fire. It blossoms from stillness. 7. The breath that never ends. In the end, all Taoist practices, from breathing to meditation, from herbs to rituals, returned to one principle: the breath. To breathe consciously was to join heaven and earth in a single act. Each inhale drew in the key of the cosmos. Each exhale returned it. Life and death were but two halves of the same rhythm, and immortality was simply the awareness of that rhythm without interruption. In deep meditation, a master's breath would become so subtle it could no longer be seen. Only the quiet smile remained. It was said that when such a one finally passed away, the room filled with fragrance, and his body dissolved into light. Whether myth or mystery, no one could say, but the meaning was clear. He had returned to the source. 8. The circle completed, the night deepened. The sage by the bronze cauldron opened his eyes. In the silence, he heard the river outside, steady, endless. He smiled, realizing that the river and his breath were one and the same. He rose, stepped outside, and looked at the stars. For a long while, he stood there, feeling no difference between himself and the sky. Then, with a final exhale, gentle, perfect, he vanished into the dawn mist. To seek immortality is to discover that you have never died. The breath that began the universe still flows through you, unbroken, eternal. Chapter 7. The Sacred and the Common. Taoism in daily life. When the sages vanished into the mountains, the people believed the Tao had gone with them. but the Tao never left. It flowed quietly through the streets, through families, through the beating hearts of those who tilled the soil and brewed tea. For the Tao was never a secret to be kept. It was life itself, lived correctly. 1. The everyday Tao. In the ancient villages of the Yangtze Valley, farmers rose before dawn. They did not pray for rain. They watched the clouds, listened to the wind, and planted when the earth was ready. To them, Taoism was not a religion, but a way of noticing. When the river rose, they did not curse it, they adapted. When the crops failed, they did not despair, they learned. They understood instinctively that to live well is to live in rhythm with what is, and so, without knowing it, they practiced the Tao. The old saying went, "The sage finds the Tao in palaces, the farmer finds it in the fields." Every act, eating, resting, working, became sacred when done in harmony. Even the smallest gesture could be an expression of cosmic order. To pour a cup of tea with mindfulness was to align heaven, earth, and human in one motion. 2. The art of simplicity. One of the most enduring Taoist teachings is Pu, or an uncarved block. It symbolizes the original, natural state of all things, pure, simple, and whole. To live as the uncarved block meant to remain close to one's essence, unshaped by greed or ambition. Laozi wrote, "He who knows contentment is rich. He who knows when to stop will endure." From this arose the art of simplicity, which shaped Chinese aesthetics for millennia. Homes were designed to flow with light and wind, not to dominate them. Gardens were built to appear unplanned, stones placed not by symmetry, but by feeling, as if grown by nature itself. Every empty space was as meaningful as the full. Even calligraphy became a form of meditation. The ink, the brush, the paper, all moved in balance. A single stroke could reveal the state of the artist's soul. The true beauty of a painting, said one master, is the space where the brush did not touch. 3. Tao and the healing arts. The Tao also flowed into medicine, into the belief that health was harmony between yin and yang, between body and spirit. Chinese physicians saw the body as a miniature cosmos. Blood was the river, breath the wind, and the heart the sun. When these moved in balance, life thrived. When one element dominated the others, illness arose. Thus was born traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, a living embodiment of Taoist philosophy. Herbs, acupuncture, and qigong were not methods of fighting disease, but of restoring flow. The doctor was not a conqueror of sickness, but a guide who led the patient back to the Tao. In the Taoist medical texts, the greatest healer was the one who prevented illness, not through drugs, but through balance, diet, and breath. To nourish life, said the Daodejing, is to follow the seasons. To force the body is to invite decay. Even today, millions live by that wisdom, sleeping early in winter, rising early in spring, eating with the rhythm of the earth. 4. The flow of movement. Taoism and martial arts. Taoism also gave birth to the most graceful form of strength, Tai Chi, Tai Chi. Unlike other martial arts born from conflict, Tai Chi was born from stillness. It was not about striking the enemy, but about understanding his energy. Every movement followed the flow of qi, circular, gentle, unstoppable. When pushed, the master yielded like water. When space opened, he flowed like a river returning to its course. In the courtyard at dawn, practitioners moved like drifting clouds, their bodies tracing invisible patterns of the cosmos. Each posture was both meditation and battle, both prayer and breath. To the Taoist warrior, the greatest victory was peace. Be still as a mountain, said the masters, and move like the great river. 5. The music of the world. Taoism taught that all sounds are born from silence, and all motion from stillness. The ancient guqin, a 7-string zither, was said to be the instrument of sages. Its sound was soft, sometimes barely audible, like wind over bamboo. It was not played to impress, but to commune with the universe. When a Taoist musician plucked a string, he did not seek melody, he sought resonance. He listened for the echo that connected him to the stars. The music was not entertainment, it was meditation, a reminder that harmony begins where noise ends. 6. The wisdom of letting go among the people. Taoism also shaped a way of thinking, gentle, humorous, and deeply accepting. Where others sought control, the Taoist sought release. Where others clung to life, he flowed with it. When a man lost his fortune, the villagers mourned for him. The Taoist monk said, "Who knows if it is good or bad?" Later, the man's misfortune saved him from being conscripted into war. The monk smiled, saying, "Now do you see?" This story, repeated through generations, became a proverb. Who can say what is fortune, what is misfortune? Taoism taught that life is too vast to judge from one moment. Only time reveals the whole pattern, and often what we call disaster is the Tao at work. 7. The silent religion. Unlike other faiths, Taoism never demanded conversion. It did not ask followers to believe, only to observe. Its temples were open to wanderers, its priests humble servants of the flow. A Taoist ritual was not a command to heaven, but an offering to harmony. Even the simplest act, lighting incense, bowing to the 4 directions, symbolized gratitude to the forces that sustain existence. In every Taoist ceremony, there was space for silence, for it was in silence that the Tao spoke most clearly. 8. The way in the world. Over time, Taoism shaped the soul of Chinese civilization. Its spirit flowed through art, poetry, governance, and even humor. It taught emperors humility, generals patience, and peasants contentment. It whispered through every dynasty, "Do less, see more, be still, flow." And even today, in the chaos of the modern world, the old wisdom survives. In the calm of a tea house, in the pause between breaths, in the way sunlight falls on bamboo leaves. At dusk, a young student once asked his master, "How can I live by the Tao?" The old man smiled, poured 2 cups of tea, and handed one to him. "Drink," he said, "then breathe. The rest will come." The Tao does not belong to the sacred or the profane. It is the quiet thread that connects them both. Chapter 8. The 3 treasures. Compassion, frugality, and humility. The sage once said, "I have 3 treasures that I hold and cherish. The first is compassion. The second is frugality. The third is not daring to be ahead of the world." To the untrained ear, these words sounded simple, but to those who had walked long in the way, they were the map back to heaven. 1. The first treasure, compassion. Sir, the first treasure is Tezu, compassion, the soft heart that embraces all beings, Laozi wrote. Through compassion, one can be brave. It is a paradox, for the world often sees compassion as weakness. Yet, in the eyes of the Tao, softness is the root of strength. Water yields to all things, yet nothing can resist it. In the same way, a compassionate soul bends, but never breaks. In ancient tales, when the warlords of the warring states sought victory through steel, a nameless hermit came to their camp. He carried no weapon, only a reed flute. When asked what power he possessed, he said, "I can make men lay down their swords." That night, he played a melody so gentle that soldiers wept. By dawn, the army refused to fight. They said later that the song reminded them of home, of mothers, of the scent of rice, of the peace they had forgotten. This is the power of compassion. It does not conquer the enemy. It dissolves the need for enmity. True courage, said the sages, is not in striking first, but in enduring with love. Compassion allows one to see oneself in others, to recognize that life is a shared breath, and that harming another is to wound the same flow that sustains us. Even in modern Taoist practice, compassion remains the foundation of inner alchemy. For the heart must be open before energy can rise, and love must be cultivated before enlightenment can bloom. To know others is wisdom, said Laozi. To know yourself is enlightenment. To conquer others is power. To conquer yourself is true strength. The second treasure, frugality, Jan. The second treasure is Chen, frugality, the art of simplicity, the virtue of knowing enough. It is abundance without excess. It is to live in tune with the cycles of nature, consuming only what is needed and letting go of what burdens the soul. In a time when kings built golden palaces, Laozi lived in a small hut by the river. When asked why he did not seek wealth, he replied, "He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough." In Taoist temples, monks still live by this rule. They eat rice, vegetables, and tea. They mend their robes until the fabric thins like silk. They do not hoard, because they understand that everything borrowed from the earth must one day return. Frugality, in essence, is harmony with the natural flow of giving and receiving. In modern times, the lesson is more urgent than ever. The planet groans under the weight of human desire. Forests fall, oceans choke, and cities overflow with things no one needs. Taoism whispers an old truth: the one who hoards much will lose much. To live with less is not deprivation, it is freedom. A free heart has space for joy, for stillness, for the Tao to enter. The third treasure, humility. Bugan Wei Tan Sa Sens. The third treasure is humility, not daring to be ahead of the world. In a world obsessed with being first, Taoism teaches the opposite. To step back is to advance. To yield is to gain. To be unseen is to endure. The humble person does not compete, and therefore cannot be defeated. Like water, he flows to the lowest places, yet nourishes all things. There is an old parable. A bamboo grove once quarreled with the oak tree. The oak said, "I stand tall and mighty. I shelter all who come beneath me." The bamboo bowed and replied, "And when the storm comes?" When the storm came, the oak snapped. The bamboo bent, then rose again. The humble endure because they do not resist the Tao. Even emperors were taught this lesson. The Tao Te Ching warns, "He who stands on tiptoe cannot stand firm. He who shines cannot see clearly." True power is quiet. True leadership is invisible. The greatest rulers were those whose people said, "We did it ourselves." Humility, then, is not self-denial. It is alignment with the natural order. It is to understand that the world does not revolve around the self, but flows through it like a river passing over stone. The balance of the three treasures when combined. The three treasures create the perfect balance of being. Compassion gives warmth. Frugality gives peace. Humility gives endurance. Without compassion, wisdom becomes cold. Without frugality, abundance becomes greed. Without humility, strength becomes tyranny. These three virtues sustain each other, like the three legs of a sacred tripod. Remove one, and the balance collapses. The Taoist path is not about ascension or domination. It is about preserving the harmony of the self and the cosmos. Each act, no matter how small, should echo these treasures. When the heart is compassionate, the hands gentle, and the desires few, the Tao flows freely. 5. The modern echo of the treasures. Even today, the three treasures find their place in the modern soul. They whisper softly beneath the noise of ambition, consumerism, and ego. A mother comforting her child practices compassion. A worker choosing honesty over gain lives frugality. A leader who listens before speaking shows humility. Every small act of kindness, restraint, or modesty is the Tao manifesting through human form. It is not religion. It is remembrance of what it means to be truly human. 6. The returning as twilight descended on the mountain monastery. An old master and his disciple watched the mist rise from the valley. "Master," said the boy, "why do you keep saying we must return to simplicity? Isn't life about progress?" The master smiled. "Look at the river," he said. "It flows forward, yet always returns to the sea. That is progress, to move, yet return." He lifted his teacup, steam curling like spirit. "The world chases greatness," he said softly, "but the Tao lives in smallness, in the quiet heart that loves, in the hands that give, in the soul that does not need to be first. He who holds the three treasures dwells in peace, walks in strength, and leaves no shadow behind." Chapter 9. The Immortals and the Alchemists. Seeking the elixir of the Tao, long before the empire learned to forge steel or sail the seas, there were men who sought to defy death. They walked barefoot into the misted mountains, following whispers of sages who had vanished into clouds. They were called Fangshi, Fengsher, the seekers of the way beyond life. Their goal was simple, yet impossible: to find the elixir of immortality, the drink of heaven, the potion that would make a mortal one with the stars. 1. The first alchemist. The earliest tales spoke of Anqi Shang, the immortal of the Eastern Sea. He was said to be a man so old his hair had turned snow white 100 times, yet his face remained young as the moonlight. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, obsessed with eternal life, sent ships across the ocean to seek him. He commanded thousands of alchemists to mix mercury and jade dust, believing the secret to immortality lay in metal and mineral. But the mountains kept their silence. The emperor drank poison, mistaking it for paradise, and thus the world learned to force eternity is to invite death. 2. The fire and the cauldron. Yet the alchemists did not stop. For centuries, they tended their furnaces, mixing gold, cinnabar, and dew. They called it Naden, inner alchemy, a reflection of the cosmos within the human form. In the outer world, the cauldron boiled metals. In the inner world, the cauldron was the mind itself, refining thoughts into spirit. Refine the essence to transform into energy. Refine energy to transform into spirit. Refine spirit to return to the void. These were not recipes for potions, but maps of consciousness. Each stage was a death and a rebirth, a surrender of what is false to reveal what is eternal. To the wise, the true elixir was not liquid, but clarity. The fire they tended was not flame, but awareness. 3. The mountains of the immortals. Legends say the 8 immortals once roamed the sacred peaks: Zhongli Quan, Lu Dongbin, He Shangu, and their companions. They were not gods, but humans who had transcended desire and fear. Each had once suffered, failed, or been forgotten by the world, yet each found the Tao in their own way. Zhuangzi attained it through compassion, Lu Dongbin through dream and awakening, He Shanggu through purity of heart. They were said to walk across the seas on lotus leaves, carrying gourds of nectar that could cure any illness. But the true meaning of their powers was symbolic. Their immortality was of the soul, not the body. Where others sought gold, they sought stillness. Where others feared death, they saw through it. The sage dies, said Lu Dongbin, but the Tao never dies. And so the sage becomes the Tao. 4. The inner alchemy of the spirit by the Tang dynasty. Taoist masters began to turn inward, realizing that the path to eternity lay not in matter, but in mind. They taught that the human body is a microcosm of the universe. The belly is earth, the heart is fire, the lungs are metal, the kidneys are water, the liver is wood. When these 5 elements move in harmony, the inner cosmos becomes a mirror of heaven. Meditation became a laboratory, breath became the flame. Every inhalation drew the stars inward. Every exhalation released the illusion of separateness. This was true alchemy. Not to turn lead into gold, but to turn ignorance into wisdom, fear into serenity, and time into eternity. The greatest masters called this returning the spirit to the source. 5. The illusion of immortality. One disciple once asked his master, "Can we truly live forever?" The old man smiled and picked up a leaf. "This leaf will fall," he said, "and rot. But will the tree die?" "No," said the disciple. "Then understand," said the master, "you are not the leaf." The disciple bowed. In that moment, he realized the heart of Taoism. Immortality is not escape from death, but awakening to the cycle that has no end. 6. The path of the breath. Every Taoist alchemist learned that breath was the bridge between the mortal and the eternal. They practiced Qigong, shaping air like sculptors of wind. They inhaled heaven and exhaled earth, balancing yin and yang within the body. When the breath became soft as silk and continuous as a circle, they said the true embryo of the Tao was forming, a spiritual rebirth, a body of light within the body of flesh. The sages called this the immortal fetus, Sheng Tai, not a literal being, but a symbol of awakening. It was said that when this inner light matured, the adept could leave his physical shell and roam freely among the stars. But the wise knew this was not a miracle of escape. It was freedom from illusion, the realization that one has always been part of the infinite. 7. The mist and the mirror. There is a story told in the Taoist monasteries. A hermit once meditated by a lake for 40 years, seeking immortality. One morning, he looked into the water and saw not his face, but the reflection of the sky. In that moment, he understood the self he had sought to preserve never existed. He rose, smiled, and walked across the water until his form vanished into mist. The villagers said he became immortal, but the old monks say he simply awakened. 8. The true elixir. In all their searching through metals, mountains, and mantras, the Taoist alchemists discovered that the elixir of immortality was within them all along. It was not gold or jade, not mercury or dew. It was awareness, untouched by birth or death. The fire of the furnace was the passion for truth. The cauldron was the heart. The ingredients were compassion, patience, and stillness. When mixed with time, breath, and love, the elixir formed, a peace so pure that even death could not disturb it. When the body dies, wrote one sage, the Tao remains. He who has found the Tao has already lived forever. 9. The immortals return. Legends say that at twilight, when the mist is thick and the cranes circle the peaks, the immortals return to the world in silence. They are not gods with thunder and flame. They are the whisper in the bamboo grove, the shimmer on the river at dawn, the stranger who smiles without reason. For they are the reflection of the Tao itself, eternal, gentle, and unseen. And in truth, perhaps they never left. For in every kind heart, every quiet act, every soul that lives in harmony, an immortal breathes again. 10. The circle completes. At the end of all alchemical journeys, the seeker realizes there is nothing to gain, nothing to keep, only to return, like vapor returning to the sky. Immortality was never about time. It was about presence, to live so fully in the moment that each instant becomes eternal. The Taoist path ends where it began, in the silence of the heart, in the breath that is both yours and the universe's, in the knowing that you have always been whole. The one who knows eternity is enlightened. The one who lives in eternity is free. Daodejing. Chapter 10. The Legacy of Taoism. The way in the modern world. The ancient masters once said, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. And yet, thousands of years later, the Tao is still being spoken in whispers, in silence, in the quiet rhythm of life itself. Though the world has changed, mountains now echo with engines, not chants. The spirit of Taoism endures, not as a religion bound to temples, but as a way of being, a philosophy breathing through humanity's search for peace in a restless age. 1. The modern noise. The world today hums with light and speed. Screens glow brighter than the moon once did. Cities never sleep. People chase progress, profit, and perfection, but forget how to simply be. In the chaos, anxiety grows like weeds. Men and women lose touch with the seasons, the sky, and even their own breath. Yet, amid the noise, a quiet voice returns, an echo from the mountains, a whisper from the sages. Do less, see more, flow. And that whisper is Taoism, reborn, too. The Tao in everyday life without knowing it. Many modern people live by the Tao. When someone pauses to breathe during stress, when they choose simplicity over chaos, when they accept rather than resist, they are walking the way. Minimalism, mindfulness, meditation, these are not inventions of the 21st century. They are echoes of the Tao, returning to remind humanity that happiness was never in more, but in enough. A person who drinks tea in silence, who walks slowly beneath the trees, who smiles without reason, has already found the Tao without seeking it. 3. The green wisdom. In an age of environmental collapse, Taoism's voice has become prophetic. Long before the concept of climate change, Laozi wrote, "Man follows the earth follows heaven, heaven follows the Tao. The Tao follows what is natural." The Taoist understood that to harm nature was to harm oneself, for there is no outside in the Tao. Today, ecologists and spiritual seekers alike rediscover this truth. The forest is no longer just a resource, it is a temple. The wind is no longer noise, it is instruction. The river does not need worship, only respect. And so, Taoism quietly re-enters the modern mind, not through ritual, but through ecological consciousness. It teaches, to save the earth, we must return to flow. 4. The Tao and the body. The ancient arts of Tai Chi and Qigong now spread across the world. In parks of Beijing, Paris, and New York, elderly men and women move like drifting clouds at dawn. To outsiders, it looks like dance. To those who know, it is prayer in motion, a meditation where breath and energy weave like silk. Every step, every gesture is a dialogue with heaven and earth. It restores what the modern world steals: balance, grace, and awareness. Even science now confirms what the sages once felt: that calm breath slows the heart, that stillness heals, that peace itself is medicine. 5. Taoism and science. Once, religion and science stood apart, but Taoism never made that division. To the Taoist, studying the stars or cells was not rebellion against heaven, but an act of reverence. Modern physicists now describe the universe in words that echo the Daodejing: fields that flow, forces that balance, matter and energy transforming endlessly. Quantum theory speaks of emptiness that creates form, and cosmology speaks of a universe without center or edge. Just as Laozi once said, all things arise from being. Being arises from non-being. Science, without meaning to, has found the Tao in numbers and light. 6. The return of inner alchemy. Meditation apps, breathing exercises, yoga, they all lead back to one truth: that the greatest transformation happens within. Modern seekers call it energy work, mindfulness, flow state, but to the Taoist, it is simply Niden, the inner alchemy, reborn in new language. When a person stills their thoughts, when breath softens and awareness deepens, the ancient furnace is lit once more. Inside, metal becomes spirit, time becomes timeless. And though the practitioner may never know the name Laozi, they are walking the same path that began thousands of years ago under mountain mist. 7. The quiet revolution. The world speaks often of revolutions: political, industrial, digital. But the Taoist speaks of only one: the revolution of returning, not forward, but inward, not conquering, but surrendering. In this quiet revolution, people leave behind the hunger for control and rediscover the peace of being part of something infinite. It happens when a man forgives instead of fighting, when a woman lets go of her pain and smiles again, when a child watches the rain and feels wonder. This is the revolution that changes the world, one gentle heart at a time. 8. The way beyond religion. Taoism today is not confined to monasteries or sacred texts. It lives in poetry, psychology, art, and even modern philosophy. It teaches balance to a divided world, patience to a hurried one, and kindness to those who have forgotten softness. It does not demand worship, only understanding. For the Tao cannot be owned, only lived. It exists wherever there is life, and it flows wherever there is humility to receive it. The highest good is like water, said Laozi. It benefits all things and does not contend. And perhaps this is why Taoism still survives, because it never tried to dominate, only to harmonize. 9. The eternal flow. When night falls, the neon lights of cities shimmer like rivers of stars. Somewhere, a monk still chants softly. Somewhere, a scientist watches the universe expand and whispers in awe. Both, without knowing, are speaking the same truth. The Tao flows through all things. The ancient and the modern are not separate. They are the yin and yang of the same eternal dance. Every discovery, every silence, every heartbeat is the Tao unfolding itself anew. 10. The circle returns. At the end of the path, there is no temple, no secret, no destination. There is only a return to simplicity, to silence, to presence. The sage of today may wear jeans instead of robes, hold a phone instead of a staff. But if their heart is calm and their actions gentle, they too walk the way. For the Tao has never belonged to time or place. It is the rhythm of the universe, the pulse of the stars, the breath of the soul. And as long as there is one being who pauses to feel it, the Tao lives on. The Tao is everywhere. It flows through all things, the sky, the stone, the heart. It cannot be lost because it has never been found. Transition from the flow of the Tao to the light of the Dharma as centuries flowed like rivers through the valleys of time. The wisdom of the Tao spread quietly through mountains and hearts. Humanity learned to live in harmony, to flow like water, to bend like bamboo, to follow the rhythm of the seasons. But even in this balance, a question lingered in the silence of the world. If all things are one with the Tao, why does suffering still exist? The mountains whispered, but did not answer. The rivers flowed, but gave no reason for the tears of humankind. For though Taoism had taught the art of harmony, it did not end the ache of impermanence. Men grew old, empires fell, loved ones faded into dust. The heart still longed for peace beyond the circle of life and death. And so, as the world turned once more beneath the stars, another light began to rise. A light born not of heaven or earth, but of compassion and insight. It came from the foothills of the Himalayas, where a prince once sat beneath a Bodhi tree, refusing to move until he saw the truth of all existence. When he opened his eyes, the universe itself seemed to breathe with him. That breath became the Dharma, a new path, not of flow, but of awakening. If the Tao was the great river, then Buddhism was the still lake, reflecting not the world, but the mind that perceives it. Thus began a new chapter in humanity's spiritual journey. The way of nature gave birth to the path of enlightenment. From silence came compassion. From harmony, wisdom. From the mountain of the Tao rose the light of the Buddha. Next, Buddhism, the path of enlightenment. The story of how one man's awakening reshaped the destiny of humankind and revealed that suffering itself was the doorway to peace.